I love when someone does kind of fall back in this scarcity or lack mindset. The other men are there to like put them not in their place, but like, man, take a breath, take a step back, breathe, and just understand that you are progressing. Things will come. You will fulfill your goals and your dreams. Don't hammer yourself over the head by beating yourself up because you don't have 10 assets and you only have 3. You'll get there. Time will do its job.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another episode of the Tactical Empire. I am joined today by Sean Ryder. How are you, man? What's going on?
Not bad. I have to get used to recording these podcasts in different places. I am currently in the Outer Banks enjoying a week down here at the beach. This is the only thing I'm doing this week. So for all the people out there that will roll their eyes saying that I'm working on vacation, this is not work. This is providing content with my man, Jeff, while my family is out shopping for some shoes and candy and whatever else they're going to come home with.
I love it, man. I love it. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you could take an hour out of your day for me.
An hour out of the week. Yes, an hour out of the week. So such minimal time. So it's you're welcome. But you guys had a shift in location this week too. You guys are in Pigeon Forge, I believe.
No, we left Pigeon Forge and we're in Lexington, Kentucky now.
There you go. See, I can't even keep up with your schedule. Jeez Louise.
So I'm in a Regis office for the day.
Noted. What is that? What I don't even know what a Regis is. I've heard it before, but don't know what that is.
It's co-working space. I rent a co-working space every once in a while just to get a bunch done and to have like focus time and reliable internet. But my video seems choppy for some reason, so it's not that reliable apparently.
There you go. The audio was good until you literally told the computer that it was choppy, and then it got choppy for a second. But other than that, we can hear you loud and clear for now. The listeners will forgive you if there's any connection issues. But this kind of plays into what we're going to talk about today. It's weird how the intros always do that. You know, you have the freedom of autonomy in regards to being able to travel with your family and work from wherever. And, you know, I've obviously done a few podcasts where hey, my kids, we're in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. Hey, we're in the Outer Banks. Hey, we just got done this little thing. Hey, you know, I was thinking back to a year ago, I gave a presentation on basically wealthy business owners. It was to a large group of gym owners, and I talked about wealth and wealth building. And during the presentation, I did not define wealth. And after the presentation, when I was off stage, someone came up and asked how I defined wealth. I gave them a short answer. I'll give it later in the podcast. But I wanted to talk today about what is wealth, or how does Jeff Smith define wealth? And then I'll kind of give my thoughts on it. And then, you know, hopefully the listeners can take some of what we say and then just go do the exercise themselves. Like, what is a wealthy life to them? What areas of life are most important? How do they define wealth in those areas to give kind of like the overall macro view of wealth? So when you think of wealth, again, this doesn't have to be the answer, end all be all for everyone, but what is it to Jeff Smith?
Oh man, I think that this can take many forms. I think that just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, there's a law of diminishing returns with regards to money, actual income that comes in, and there's a point in time when you have enough. I guess you could have a little bit more. You could obviously always make more money or have more resources, but you're trading things for it at every point in time. You're trading time for it. Usually, you're sacrificing opportunities to do things that are important to you to work and to produce more. For me, I mean, I don't know how it's defined. Ultimately, I want to have enough money to be able to take care of those that I love. And I mean, a definition I use a lot of times when we're talking to people is that I'm currently pursuing enough wealth to be able to write a check for any sort of healthcare need that any of my loved ones have at any point in time. should something arise, even if that includes travel, even that includes some sort of sabbatical or international stay. So right now I'm defining that as wealth. Uh, the funny thing is that 20 years ago, when I met my wife, one of the things that we talked about a long time ago was that I wanted to make enough money so that when we had kids, when they got into college, if they played sports, I wanted to be able to detach myself from whatever business or jobs or anything that we were doing. And so that we could RV around, ironically, to go to every one of their sporting events and never miss a game while they were actually in college. And to me, at the time, that was defined as wealth. Whether we knew it or not, whether it was purposeful or not, we've kind of already designed that life for ourselves. So when you reach that level, then you have to reevaluate things to say, what is like the next step of what you're trying to do? And for me, like the next step is that ability to solve problems with my checkbook, big problems, bigger problems than I'm able to solve right now. And so while that's not a true answer, really, it's not a dollar figure in my mind at this point. It's more of the freedom to be a good husband and be a good father and be able to focus on things that are important to me while my children are young and growing up. Because I don't want to reach this phase when I'm 65 years old and they're long gone, they're 30 years old or whatever, and have their own kids, and I've missed my entire window of opportunity to spend meaningful time with them. So while that's not a money answer, it's kind of like you prioritize what's important to you during each period and season of life, I feel like, with regards to wealth.
I agree with what you said. It was interesting when you said about the hierarchy of wealth. I never used that term, but I think that relates to kind of what you said about how the definition of wealth evolved over time. I obviously did not think the same when I was 22 coming out of college to become a high school teacher making 35 grand a year before taxes. And it has evolved as my life and my thoughts have expanded and just my responsibilities have expanded, getting married and having kids. So it's definitely different. It's interesting to say that now where we are and kind of talk about money, but not related to money in regards to it being a specific number. And then it's, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like I could live a very minimalist life. And if it was just me, I could have a really small apartment or just a studio room and I could live on very few dollars going into my grocery budget. That's what I did in my 20s. And those groceries would be more expensive now, but like my need or like my wants haven't really changed in regards to like materialistic wants. I want to travel more, but again, it costs more because I'm traveling with more humans. But with that being said, I've had to work my tail off to get to a point where the cash flow is sustaining my lifestyle. And so if I had to, I don't like to, because my response, I don't like to define wealth, but if I had to define wealth, which is what the question was that someone asked me, like, how do you define wealth? And it was like, well, I don't define wealth. I feel it. I feel wealthy. And so when I was 23, I didn't have the financial wealth, but I felt wealthy because I was doing what it is that I wanted to do. When I was building a gym business, I didn't have the financial wealth, but I loved what I did on a daily basis. Then the money came, and what that did for me was, one, provided financial security, but that's not wealth. And then it allowed me to go work on other endeavors and start learning about things and invest in education that I didn't have exposure to before. And I kind of found new areas of the brain that were stimulated when I went to learn about, real estate or cash value life insurance, or as I became a mentor and I started buying, into groups, mastermind groups, and hiring coaches and things like that. But I want to give credit where credit's due. I believe this is how Robert Kiyosaki defines wealth. And he's like, if everything goes to zero overnight, which it probably won't. That's my take, is like, it probably won't go to zero overnight. But if your income went to zero and you had no money flowing towards you tomorrow, how long could you sustain the current lifestyle that you desire before you ran out of money? Now, just because your income doesn't go to zero doesn't mean your assets go to zero. So if I own a ton of assets and maybe the cash flow of those assets went to zero, do I have enough built-in equity that I could gain access to by either HELOCs or selling the assets while I figure out what to do to generate income for myself. And so like the definition there was like, how long can I live if my income went to zero, if I had no more money flowing towards me? And so that kind of gives you what I like about that is it involves the financial component, like how much money do you have access to? How have you set up your financial structure of your life? And also, how much time have you allotted to not change your life for the negative? Of course, if we had no income coming, we would cancel certain things, and we would not be going to certain schools most likely, and we would not be members of the country club or whatever it may be. But I don't want to have to change my lifestyle. So I like that because it involves both of those. Another definition that we talk about on this podcast is like, or what I hear plenty of people say, which I think is just a blanket definition, is the freedom of time and money. The issue with saying the freedom of time and money is like, what's freedom? Like freedom to not have to work, or freedom of not having to go to an office or whatever. Like, and so what you say often on the podcast is it's control. Freedom is the word that people like to hear, and I think it's easy to connect to. But I don't think it defines anything well enough. So I like what you say in regards to control. So it is the control of money. It is the control of time, the control of my schedule, the control of the pathway on where we're going in life, the control to lead myself, the control to lead my family, the control to support my kids. And when they're young, of course, lead them. We are educators to our children. So I like those definitions for me. And while you talk about being able to stroke the check for emergencies, for me, I'm optimistic, but I'm an optimistic realist. And so I don't think of the emergencies that I need to stroke checks for. I imagine things going to zero. And so I try and set up my finances to where I have an abundance amount of security and access, which rings true to what we talk about when we're talking about the 7 levels of financial freedom. So when you're talking to other people as they build wealth, like what are some things that you see other people doing or yearn for, desire as they make their way up the rungs?
Well, I think that I've actually heard 2 or 3 people recently say, and they used very similar numbers. One person said 40K a month, which is $480,000. And the other person said not much changes once you make $500,000 a year. So those are the 2 that I can think of in the last 2 days that I've heard say similar things. And these are well-off people who are high income earners. And but their point is simply that like once you get to that threshold of about $500,000 of income a year, like there's very little, like money changes very little after that point. Like if you want to push on and do like a private jet and things like that, that's one thing. But ultimately, like that's where you relieve the money troubles or the stress of money. There's very little that they have to stress about because of their investment percentage based on what it takes them to live on a regular basis. Let's say they live off 30K and save 20K a month in a $50,000 income. Like that's obviously very aggressive and good. I mean, wealth is really truly what you're doing right now. It's not the pursuit of something. It's the enjoyment of like being comfortable in your own skin. And I think that more and more people in my mind are kind of recognizing that it's not all about the chase of more income. I know multiple people that make 7 figures in a year, and like for them, it is what it is. Like they enjoy business, but they all kind of say the similar things. Like what's important is truly what's important. It's the things that don't cost anything. A lot of times you don't recognize that or see that because of the stress money brings to a situation. I mean, if you're only making $3,000 a month, you're so stressed about money, you can't focus on the meaningful things that are close to you most of the time, right?
Yeah, I like all that. It's interesting, the diminishing marginal returns as you get higher. Of course, people that aren't making good money, they're like, well, I don't need $500,000, I need 100,000. If you have a family of 4 in the United States, $100,000 like pre-tax, just be honest, isn't going to get you very far nowadays. And it's unfortunate to say that as someone that 10 years ago was making 35,000. Like I said, like I just can't imagine being a high school teacher. I would have got some raises between now and then, but or between then and now, but I don't see how I could support my family on something any less. Our lifestyle would be different. Not to say we wouldn't be we would be less happy, but I can't even put myself there mentally to be like I am not pursuing $1 million a year income. And there's actually something freeing to be able to acknowledge that in a world where like people want to push, and everyone wants to be like, I don't want. Now both of these guys, one's a multi, 100 whatever millionaire, and one's a multi-100 billionaire. But like I think of the difference between Mark Zuckerberg and Tom from MySpace. Like everyone, like Mark Zuckerberg is in the limelight. He's one of the richest people in the world, and everyone's forgot about this Tom guy. But like Tom sold MySpace for quite a few tens of millions of dollars, and then he has gone on to like just do what he loves, which is travel and take photos. And like he's living a really good life under the radar, not having to go to hearings in front of Congress, and not needing most likely a security detail because he's afraid of his life no matter where he goes, right? Like I would say Tom is more wealthy than Mark Zuckerberg, even though Mark Zuckerberg has more zeros behind his name. And so like that's what I like right now. I am living in the present, and I'm glad that we've kind of taken that turn on this podcast episode, because if you're not in a space where you don't have like financial security, you have to get there. But the type of people that I've worked with one-on-one over the past 4 years have erred on the side of they actually do have enough income. Yeah, they probably need to buy more assets, especially if that's only coming from their business or a single income stream. So that's why we want them to buy assets. But the recurring theme is like they're chasing more. And I'm always like, well, what's more? Like, what's enough for you? What is an extra $100,000 going to change for your life right now that you currently couldn't do? And like, so like for me, like I look at this vacation we took, and I'm open about the numbers. Like we didn't buy the biggest Airbnb house, but it's a brand new house, 1 block from the beach. And I have my in-laws with me. So it's split between 2 couples, like me and my wife, and then my mother-in-law and father-in-law. But it cost us slightly over $10,000 for this 7 days at OBX. Like, okay, well, I don't need to make $1 million to afford a $10,000 vacation in the middle of summer. Like, I just don't like, so I know what enough is for me. I don't only want to take 1 vacation a year, but I also am the type of person where, one, I don't like 7-day vacations. And so 1 a year is enough for me. I would much prefer numerous 3 to 4 day vacations, which is what me and my family do. My wife loves her job, which is a W-2 job. So she literally cannot take weeks on end off at this point in her life, nor does she want to. So I don't want to, she doesn't want to. And so like, we know what enough in regards to vacations are. And that ties back to money. And, but I do want you guys to recognize that you have to be pseudo okay with where you are right now, while acknowledging there's room for improvement, but not letting that gap define your fulfillment or happiness, or just in simplest terms, Jeff, like your mood.
Yep.
Like it should not impact your mood that you're not making $300,000 a year and you're only making 225, or you want to make 200 and you're only making 125. Like live within your means, have a strategy set aside some in regards to savings and investing, and then let time do its job. That doesn't mean we're sitting around twiddling thumbs. We're trying to improve. But I think this comes back to the definition of wealth is, hey, we recognize that we are more wealthy than 99% of the people in the world. If you guys are listening to this podcast on a $1,000 phone while you're at work or building a business or sitting with your spouse over coffee in the mornings, whatever it may be, and you guys have a roof overhead, like, I don't want to be that guy's like, oh, you have it made. Like, we all have problems, man. But like, define it, understand where you are, where you want to go. You're not going to be happy once you get to some magic number, and just push forward. Surround yourself with more people like who we have in the inner circle. These guys, I love these guys. I love when someone does kind of fall back in this scarcity or lack mindset. The other men are there to like put them not in their place, but like, man, take a breath, take a step back, breathe, and just understand that you are progressing. Things will come. You will fulfill your goals and your dreams. Don't hammer yourself over the head by beating yourself up because you don't have 10 assets and you only have 3. You'll get there. Time will do its job.
It doesn't take as long as you think it does. You just need a plan. I think the biggest thing that keeps most people stuck is they think the gap is too big, because like most people that don't have a real direction or plan think they need like $100 million. And the reality is, like, you certainly don't. Like we do an exercise in the inner circle where you write down every single thing that you want, and then you break it down into monthly costs, and then you break down how much that takes. And like, my biggest dream list I've ever written down, I think, was $114,000 a month. And like, that was obnoxious numbers on a bunch of different things. And like, that's still only $1.2 million of expenses. I mean, now that sounds kind of crazy. And like, most people listening to this are like, well, fuck off, but don't check out on that. Just understand that I literally wrote down like everything I could possibly think of to spend money on. And so like, it still only added up to $1.2 million. And so I think if people had the financial education plugged into an actual plan, the time that it takes to get to where your entire life looks different, where you're taking the vacations that you want to be taking on a regular basis, on the cadence that you want to be taking them, it really happens so fast that I think, that's why they don't teach financial education, because you can literally do this in under 10 years for anybody starting at any point. It's just financial education plugged into a plan and then executed on that plan. And so if anybody could have it or do it or change their entire lives. I mean, that's why the systems that we teach, we say take 2 to 7 years. And that's reality. So if you want to do the $10,000 a month Airbnb or a week Airbnb 4 times a year, you just have to account for it and then walk down that road of the plan, and it will be a reality for you in the not so distant future.
There we go. If you listen to this episode and you have a different way on how you define wealth, or you just want to put it out there, go into our private Facebook page, The Tactical Empire Community, and give it to us or send it to us directly. It might spur another topic for us to talk about on a future podcast episode. If you have any questions based on this either, feel free to reach out to Jeff and I. Jeff, send the people out.
Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Come to the free Facebook group, The Tactical Empire. Hit up Sean or I if you have any questions. Have a great week. Kick ass.